When my mother-in-law moved in, she began rewriting our child's schedule, discipline, even bedtime stories. My husband said I was overreacting. That night, I found a note in my son's room that made me pack my bag because I didn't marry into a bad family. Or at least that's what I thought at the time. I met Kevin when I was 27. We both worked in different departments at the same insurance company in Newark. He had this calm, quiet way about him. The kind of guy who didn't need to raise his voice to get respect. I liked that. I'd dated loud men before. Ones who wanted to win every fight. Kevin listened, or at least pretended to. We got married 2 years later and bought a small 2-bedroom in Maplewood. I got pregnant not long after. Caleb was born in the fall, and for a while, life was peaceful. Kevin's mom, Margaret, lived about 40 minutes away in Parsippany. She never liked me, but she wasn't openly rude. Just the usual passive-aggressive stuff. When Caleb was a baby, she'd say things like, "Oh, you're not breastfeeding. That's a shame." Or, in my day, we didn't let babies cry it out. We just knew how to soothe them. I bit my tongue a lot back then. For Kevin's sake. For peace. Fast forward 8 years. Margaret slipped on ice and had to have hip surgery. She couldn't go up and down stairs at her place anymore, and rehab would take months. Kevin brought it up over dinner one night. "She'll stay here. Just until she's better." I said, "How long is that, really?" He shrugged. "A couple months. She can take Caleb to school when I'm at work. Maybe cook a bit." I didn't like it, but I agreed. The first week, she mostly stayed in her room. We kept it quiet for her. Caleb drew her cards. I made sure the house didn't smell like anything too strong, since she complained about certain spices. I went out of my way to make her feel comfortable, but then the changes started. It began with small things. I went to pack Caleb's lunch and saw that the turkey sandwich I made had been replaced with some leftover meatloaf from dinner. When I asked, Margaret said, "He said he didn't want your sandwich." I gave him something better. I brushed it off. I mean, fine. Not a big deal. But it kept happening. She'd swap out his snacks, rewash his clothes, and put them in different drawers. Reword my rules. I caught her telling him, "You don't have to say yes, ma'am, to your mom. That's too strict." Then bedtime changed. I've always had a routine with Caleb: bath, pajamas, 2 bedtime stories, one of his choice, one of mine, then lights out by 8:30. It was our rhythm, something he loved. But after she moved in, she started sneaking in after I tucked him in. I'd hear her voice through the baby monitor. One night, I went in, and she was reading to him again, a story from some religious book I'd never seen. I told Kevin. He didn't get it. "Why are you so defensive?" he said. "She's helping. You're taking this personally." I was taking it personally. Because it was personal. Caleb started to change. He argued more. He rolled his eyes. Once, I told him to clean up his Legos, and he said, "Grandma says kids don't need chores. It's mean." That hit me in the gut. Not because of the Legos, but because I could hear her voice in his. I tried to talk to her directly. I told her, firmly but calmly, that I didn't appreciate her changing the routines I worked hard to build. She smiled, that same cold smile she always gave me. "You're so tightly wound, sweetheart," she said. "You'll push him away, if you're not careful." Push him away? That woman was rewiring my son's entire world, and my husband just sat there, pretending it wasn't happening. The worst part? I started to doubt myself. I wondered if I was being too harsh, too rigid. Maybe I was the problem. Then came the night I found the note. It was a Tuesday. Caleb had been quiet at dinner. I went to check on him before bed. Something felt off. His comforter was tucked weird. I adjusted his pillow and saw it. A piece of notebook paper, folded 4 times, hidden underneath. I opened it. The handwriting was shaky. It was his, but too neat. Like he tried really hard to copy something. "Dear Grandma, can I live with you instead of Mommy? I like your rules better. Mommy is mad all the time and doesn't understand us." My whole body went cold. That wasn't just a letter. That was coaching. That was manipulation. My son didn't come up with that idea on his own. Someone put it there, fed it to him, line by line. I sat there in the dark, staring at it. I didn't cry. I didn't even wake Kevin. I just packed a bag and left. Not because I was giving up, but because something had snapped, and I knew I couldn't stay in that house without doing something I'd regret. I stayed at a cheap motel that night off Route 22 in Union. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the bed, staring at that note over and over again, trying to figure out how we got here. I kept thinking, maybe I'm the one losing it. But no. I knew what I saw. I knew how my son used to act before she showed up. I knew my gut wasn't lying to me. The next morning I called Kevin. He picked up after a few rings, voice groggy. Where are you? I left. What the hell are you talking about? I found a note. From Caleb. Or from her. I don't even know anymore. He sighed hard, like I was being dramatic. You're blowing this out of proportion. I talked to him this morning. He's fine. That's what he said, he's fine. Like this wasn't the beginning of something much darker. I came home 2 days later. Not because I felt ready, but because I knew leaving the house completely would give Margaret exactly what she wanted. I walked in, and it already felt different. My things had been moved around. Caleb's room had new sheets. Some stiff, scratchy-looking religious-themed bedding I'd never seen before. The dinosaur night light was gone. I asked Kevin where it was. He said, Mom thought it was too childish. That's when I lost it. She's not his mother, Kevin. I am. And you're letting her erase me right in front of him. He looked exhausted, like I was the burden. She's just trying to help. You're acting paranoid. That word, paranoid, it hung in the air like poison. I didn't respond. I just walked to Caleb's room. He was coloring quietly. I sat beside him and asked, Did you write that note by yourself? He paused, looked down, then whispered, Grandma told me to. She said it was a game. That broke me. He didn't even realize what he was doing. That woman had turned my child into a pawn. I held him, but something felt different, like there was a fog between us. Later that week, I scheduled a session with a child therapist. Margaret found the appointment card and mocked me openly. Therapy for what? You trying to convince him you're the victim? I didn't answer. I just looked at her, and in that moment, I saw her clearly for the first time. Not an old woman needing help, but someone who needed control. Someone who'd spent years softening Kevin to take orders without question. And now she was grooming my son to do the same. That weekend, I came home from running errands and found a strange woman in my kitchen. This is Deborah, Margaret said. A friend from my church. She's a licensed tutor. I thought she could help Caleb catch up. Catch up from what? I asked. He's doing fine in school. Margaret smiled. He's smart, but you're not pushing him. Kevin didn't even tell me this was happening. They were making decisions behind my back. About my son. About his education. About his daily life. That night, I gave Kevin an ultimatum. She goes, or I take Caleb and file for full custody. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. You wouldn't do that. I said, try me, but I knew it wouldn't be that simple. She was inside the walls now, like mold. Quiet, creeping, destructive. Caleb was already changing, more distant with me, overly obedient with her. Like he knew she had power. A few days later, I got a call from Caleb's school. His teacher was concerned. He'd drawn a picture of 3 stick figures, him, Grandma, and Daddy, standing in a house. I was outside the house, in the rain. He said that's where Mommy lives now, the teacher told me. I hung up and vomited into the sink. That night, I started writing everything down. Dates, quotes, photos, even recordings of Margaret contradicting our household rules. I wasn't just fighting for my role as his mother. I was fighting for his identity. Before she turned him into someone I couldn't reach. And I had a plan. Not just to push her out, but to expose what she really was. Even if it meant blowing my marriage apart. I kept my head down and gathered everything. I recorded Margaret with my phone, quietly tucked into the corner of the living room shelf. She never noticed. One day, I captured her telling Caleb, "Your mother doesn't understand how boys should be raised. She's just angry because she doesn't feel needed anymore." Another day, she said, "You don't have to tell her everything. Sometimes it's better if she doesn't know." I sent the recordings to a lawyer. A woman named Patrice I found through a parenting support group online. She listened, then told me what I already feared. This isn't just undermining. If this escalates, she could try to claim you're emotionally unfit, especially if your husband backs her. It made my skin crawl, but it got worse. I started noticing Caleb saying strange things no child should think. One night at dinner, he said, "Grandma says when you were gone, the house was peaceful." I asked him where he heard that, and he said, "They talk about it when they think I'm asleep." Margaret and Kevin were poisoning him, in whispers and shadows, thinking he wouldn't understand. But he did. Kids always understand more than adults think they do. Then, one Sunday morning, while Kevin was at the gym, Margaret left her tablet charging on the counter. Notifications kept popping up. I wasn't snooping, I swear I wasn't. But one caught my eye, an email chain with her church group. I opened it. She had written to a woman named Sister Ruth, "Please pray for Caleb. He is surrounded by emotional chaos. His mother is unstable and possibly unwell. I'm working on bringing him into a more consistent, faith-based environment. Kevin is beginning to see things clearly." She was laying the groundwork, not just in her home, but with outside people, painting me as unstable, using religion as a weapon, reaching out to others to build her case. I took screenshots. All of it. I showed them to Kevin. For the first time, he looked worried. "I didn't know she was saying that," he mumbled. "You let this happen?" I snapped. "You let her get between me and our son." He said nothing, but something in him shifted. He started asking Margaret to give Caleb some space. He told her to back off from school pickup. The next day, she tripped on the front steps and had a screaming fit in the kitchen. Claimed she couldn't be left alone. Blamed me for her fall. I checked the camera on our front porch later. She hadn't fallen. She sat down slowly, then yelled. It was all for show. I showed Kevin the footage. He turned pale. Then, a week later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. Just 3 words. "You won't win." I brought it to my lawyer. We traced the postmark from Persephone, less than a mile from Margaret's condo. That's when it hit me. She was planning to leave with Caleb. The tutoring, the quiet suggestions, the note, the emails, the false fall. It was all leading up to one thing: turning my son against me and making it look like I was too unstable to care for him. She wasn't just trying to control my house. She was trying to steal my child. After that letter, I stopped waiting for Kevin to wake up. I stopped trying to fix the house from the inside. I got serious. I filed for legal consultation through Patrice, the lawyer I'd quietly been working with. We began the process of documenting everything. The coaching, the religious manipulation, the note, the staged fall, the screenshots. Patrice said I needed more than emotion, I needed patterns. Proof. Context. So I started keeping a log. Every time Margaret interfered. Every time she contradicted me in front of Caleb. Every time Kevin looked the other way. I filled pages. Caleb's school counselor agreed to see him privately. She called me after the second visit and said, "He's confused. He loves you, but he's being told you're not safe to trust. That you're unstable, even dangerous." She paused, then said, "He's starting to believe it." That crushed me. That night, I asked Kevin to come to the back porch. No distractions. Just us. I told him what I knew. About the letter. About the staged fall. About the plan she was setting in motion, planting seeds that I was mentally unwell. Painting herself as the only one Caleb could rely on. About how if we didn't stop her now, she would take him, physically, emotionally, permanently. He didn't deny it. He just said, "I think we need to talk to someone." I stared at him for a long time. "No. You need to decide if you're going to be Caleb's father or your mother's son. Because you can't be both anymore." I gave him a deadline. 1 week. During that week, Margaret started acting smug again, as if she knew she'd won. She was more affectionate with Caleb, clingy, almost theatrical. She made sure I saw it. She said things like, "Some mothers never really understand boys. It's not their fault." She was baiting me, but I didn't bite. Instead, I installed a nanny cam. 2, actually, one in the living room, one near the hallway outside Caleb's room. I told Caleb gently, "If anyone ever tells you to hide things from mommy, you can always come tell me. That's not love, sweetie. That's control." He nodded, but I could see the fog still there. It wasn't his fault. It was hers. And Kevin's. On day 6, something happened. Margaret packed a suitcase. Kevin came home from work early and found her in the hallway, trying to get Caleb to zip up a small duffel bag. "Where are you going?" he asked. She didn't answer him, just said to Caleb, "We're going somewhere special. Just the 2 of us." That was it. Kevin stepped in front of her and said, "Put the bag down." She froze. Her face changed to no more sweet grandma, just cold calculation. Then she said it. In front of Caleb. In front of Kevin. In a voice I'd never forget. "She's going to lose him anyway. Might as well get ahead of it." That moment changed everything. Kevin finally saw it. Not just the manipulation. Not just the lies. But the plan, the long, calculated plan to take Caleb from me. And worse, how close she had come because he let her. When she said those words, "She's going to lose him anyway," he turned white. Caleb stood there frozen, his little hand gripping the strap of that duffel bag like it was a lifeline. Kevin told her to leave. Not next week. Not tomorrow. Now. She refused. Said she had rights. That she wasn't going anywhere without her boy. I didn't move. I just pointed to the door and said, "You're not his mother." She screamed. Real, guttural, out of control screaming. She said I was sick. That I was manipulating Kevin. That I was unfit. That I was a danger. That's when I showed her the camera. "I've been recording everything for 3 weeks," I said. "You staged a fall. You encouraged my son to lie. You tried to take him without my consent. You're not just leaving, you're getting reported." Her face cracked. All the smugness drained out. She tried to say she was just trying to help. But it was too late. Kevin helped carry her bags to the porch. She sat out there until her friend Ruth came to pick her up. I watched from the window as she left, still trying to twist the story, whispering to Ruth, pointing at our house. Caleb stood next to me, silent. That night, I told Kevin it wasn't over. She might be gone, but the damage was done. Caleb needed real therapy. We needed space. I told him I needed him to move out, at least for now. He didn't fight me. He said, "I let this happen. You warned me." I didn't listen. For once, he was right. He left 2 days later. We set up custody paperwork. Caleb stayed with me most of the time. Kevin had visitation, but only when Margaret wasn't around. I made sure that was legally clear. Then I filed for a restraining order against Margaret. Not just for me, but to protect Caleb. My lawyer used everything. The recordings. The note. The tutoring setup. The fake fall. The letter. Even the church emails. The judge granted it. Margaret wasn't allowed near my son. No visits. No gifts. No contact. 3 months later, I transferred Caleb to a new school and found him a new therapist. Slowly, the fog started to lift. He stopped parroting her words. He started asking to play dinosaurs again. He began drawing me into his pictures. Not once did he ask where she was. Kevin tried to repair things. Showed up to appointments. Sat quietly in meetings. But I told him the truth. "I don't trust you anymore." "Not yet," he said. He understood. It's been over a year now. Margaret is still gone. Caleb's better. Not perfect, but healing. I never went back to who I was before. I don't think I ever will. But I won. Not with violence. Not with shouting. With proof. With patience. With the truth. And with a quiet, burning promise to never let anyone rewrite my role as his mother again.